Hello, I'm glad you're joining me today because today I will show you how to draw this with soft pastels. I already have a video on soft pastels on Patreon, so if you would like to, you can go and support me there and watch the extra videos. Don't forget to subscribe and make sure you press the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. Just because it's extremely hard to get rid of charcoals or soft pastels as they smear everywhere. So first I would like to sketch out my overall shape with the graphite pencil, and then we will go on to using color. For this object, and if you would like to see a video on how to start drawing objects where I explain different ways of looking at different simplified shapes, please do so. I will leave a link down below. Okay, so I would like to start with this a little bit there. So now that is going to set a specific size to the banana. Now I'm going to create a curve, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to almost like do a central line that's going through a banana to help me with the shape a little bit. Next, I'm going to draw almost like a crescent to show the shape of the banana. And now I'm going to start altering the shape to suit the actual object that I'm drawing. Okay, so now what do I need to do here? And at this stage you can go a little bit harder with your pencil. Just remember, try not to make really thick, strong lines, because as you follow along with this, you will be able to see that sometimes it can be quite hard to apply pastel or charcoal onto graphite. So you want to, you want them to be visible, but you want to keep them quite soft as well. I guess we could always soften them up with a rubber later. So the banana is wider at the top. I'm going to just carry on. We've got that little bit there at the end. Okay, so now we've got an approximate shape of the banana there, so almost like a sketched outline. Now what I would like to do is I would like to look a little bit closer at the shape and mark, these ridges, ridges that you get on the banana, and you can see them because of the highlight on one side and the shadow on the other. See, there's another big one there, but we can't really see it on that side. Okay, so I'm going to remove the central line that I don't need anymore, and I am going to draw these ridges in. One there, and then that strong one on the bottom. Right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is my approximate sketch of the shape. I think it has enough information for me to start using the pastels, but what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to try and completely erase the lines that I don't need, lines that we needed for structuring. And also what I'm going to do now is I'm going to soften the lines that are there that we do need, but we don't really need them that strong. It's more visible in real life than it is through the lens. Okay, so I think this should be quite good. Okay, so what am I going to do next is I'm going to have the basic colors. Now I do have a tutorial on charcoal where I explain use of different papers and so on YouTube, so you can go and have a look at that one as well. I will leave a link down below. But this is a gray paper, so we have to take into consideration whenever we're using a different color paper, we always have to take into consideration the color of the ground that you're working on. So this is gray. We already have that color built into our work. If we want to change it in any way, we need to add another color on top of it. So whether it's darker, whether it's lighter, whether it's another color. But if we like this shade, then we just leave it as it is. So let's start. I'm going to go for a sort of a warmer yellow. It does have quite a bit of transfer from other colors as well. But I'm not going to completely cover everything. I'm just going to add a little bit of that color through. At this stage, and then later on, if I need to, I can always add more. Okay, now I'm going to go for a lighter yellow and start applying it on the areas that are a little bit brighter. See how this yellow is just so much more zingy than the other one. Actually, I'll move this here so that it's a bit easier. Okay, next I am going to add a little bit of green. And you see how at this stage I'm not really blending anything just yet. I want to deposit some of the color on there so that then as we're blending, we can bring in more colors and more definition. Another color that I want to start adding as well is this ochre color. There's quite a bit of it here, I think, on the banana. And tiny little bit of brown. And you see, because I need very little of it at this stage, and I'm just adding a little bit, because then when I do blend the two colors in, it's going to cross, you know, and mix and create that shade that I'm actually looking for. And remember, you can always add more color later on, but it's much harder to remove it with pastels. And I'm going to do a very similar thing with black, but black I'm pretty much just going to very, very gently dot through, and a little bit there, actually with a bit of brown as well. Okay, right, so now what I'm going to do is I can especially at this stage, I can start smudging it with my fingers. Okay, so in the beginning, before we get into any kind of detail, and you see how the color changes. After a good smudge. Okay, so then there's that ridge now that's appearing on the banana. Would need to make that one a little bit darker. So see, I know it's very quick to work with these, but we already are getting a bit of shape coming through, the 3D shape. Now next, I am going to add even more color. The one thing to remember as well is that because they transfer so much, the colors can actually look different at times. Like, for example, this is orange, but it sort of looks like it's harsh brown or something like that. So just remember, because of that transfer, if you want to, you can always grab a paper towel or a tissue and very gently just give it a cleanse, and then you can see, you know, the color appearing, the true color. Okay, so let's carry on. So I'm going to add some more color. Okay, so now I'm going to carry on doing these little bits. My camera turned off, so I've missed but just a tiny little bit. I've started going on these marks. Okay, so I'm still carrying on the same stuff, so just a little one there. So as I was saying before, I'm not going to do them exactly as they are on the photograph, but it is important to put some markings in, because then you're giving the stage of ripeness of the banana, you know, because it changes its appearance as it ripens. Okay, so I'll add a little bit of just there, tiny bit there, a few spots, a bit more. Okay, and now I'm going to go into the black, and I'm going to go over some of the darker spots and darker areas, like the one here at the tip, and just a bit darker there. Some of these spots would be darker, so I'm going to go over with a little bit of black, or maybe have like a brown spot with a black spot in the middle of the brown one. And let's not forget about the tip as well, where we can see quite a bit of darkness. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to take a brush, and I'm going to smudge some of the areas with a brush, because as you can see, some of these areas are just a little too delicate for me to just go in with my fingers. So I'm going to just really softly smudge this a little bit and bring in a little bit of darkness in there. Just grabbing it from here and applying it there, and smudging it here too. I think you probably already noticed just how much quicker it is to work with charcoals and pastels, soft pastels, say compared to pencil or color pencils. Now another thing, when you are applying color, you can either go in and just apply it, you know, as we did before, or another thing, if you need just a little bit, you can even just pick some color up with a brush. See, I've got a tiny bit of green, and then apply it on, almost kind of like as if you were painting. Now there are also, even though it doesn't look like, but there are also some spots that have green on the actual banana as well. So there's a bit of green in there, just very little, but it is there. Okay, and maybe a little bit of lighter green. This sort of a yellowy green that I'm actually going to add in as is. Okay, so now we also, even though the banana itself is not finished, we're going to come back to it. I would like to start working on the falling shadow as well, because that will create that needed contrast for us to judge whether the colors are right or not right. Now for that, I'm going to use a little bit of black. A little bit there, actually I'll go for dark on there as well. And the shadow gets deeper and a bit further out on the side. Okay, now I'm gonna go in with my fingers again. You can see the color of them. And smudge. So remember, whenever you're smudging, if you are rubbing it in the circular motions, you are dissolving the color all the way through. If you are using smudging movements in one direction, you are bringing that direction, and it will still be visible. Even if you can't really see the marks, you will still be able to notice that movement. Now I'm also going to add just a tiny little bit of dark, sort of a bluey green, just because that shadow is slightly cool, but it's not blue, but it does have a bit of that cool shade going through it. And let's smudge this bit as well. I'm also going to use a charcoal pencil. You can also get pastel pencils as well, where it's pretty much the same thing. You get your pastel in the shape of a pencil, where that would give you more control and more, you'd be able to work on the details more. So I'm going to get in that little bit there, where the shadow meets the skin of the banana. So that shadow there gets just tiny bit darker when it comes closer to the banana, and kind of almost provides us that really nice crisp edge, which is quite hard to achieve when you got your fingers in there. So I'm pretty much going to use this just a little bit for the definition. And remember, if you want to find out more about charcoals, I do have a tutorial that you can have a look, that you can watch. So now I'm really getting into that contrast and creating that darker shade. When you are working realistically on a flat surface, whether you're painting or drawing, the only thing that you can rely on to create that 3D illusion is light and shadow. You don't really have much else. I mean, you've got the direction of your marks and things like that, but they're nowhere near as important as the light and the shadow. Okay, now let's have a look what's going on up here. I need to give this a bit of a smudge as well. And now let's get onto some shadows that are core shadows, the shadows that are on the object itself. No, we don't have shadows there. Really softly. I'm barely touching the paper. It's like feather strokes. Because I really don't want to leave any deep color. Just going really softly. going back into some marks. Here you can press a little bit harder. Same here and here. Okay, now it's really getting there. The more we work on it, the more we can see the shape. Now I'm using a smudge stick to soften the charcoal a little bit. The reason why I'm using a smudge stick, I can use my fingers here, but the reason why I'm using the smudge stick is because you see that line there, I want it to be reasonably crisp. So just very carefully. And I want to blend this really well as well, because it's really soft. I do have some lines showing, so if you've got the same thing happening on your drawing and you don't have smudge sticks, you can always use cotton buds or even just a little bit of tissue paper or something. Just make sure you give it a good smudge. Okay, now what I'm going to do, because I think that this edge is actually quite, that contrast is quite strong. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to really softly with my finger just go really softly all along the edge, but I'm going to do it in one direction. I'm not going to go in circles or anything like this, because I don't want to smudge this completely out of control, but just in one direction, really softly. And I'm also going to apply a little bit of brown color onto that shadow part, because now that the black and that a bit of that green is transferring onto the banana is getting a little bit too cool, that shadow area. So I'm going to add a bit of warm brown and do the same thing, and just going in one direction. Okay, if I start doing this, I'm going to blend the whole banana, so just in one direction. Okay, so it's starting to look more and more like the banana. Now I am going to use white, and I'm going to go over again some of the lighter areas, and see, that's what I mean. See how quickly it transfers, just because I've got sort of a darker colors on my fingers, goes onto the white straight away, which is not a problem, because if you're working with this kind of material, you should kind of be prepared for that. So now I'm adding more shadows, because now I can compare how light I need to go. Like, I probably don't need to add any more white around here, because it's definitely light enough, but I think that we could do with a bit of white on this side. And a little bit up there as well. And that's what I mean when you're working with soft pastels. It is like chalk, but I think in some ways they're even crumblier than actual chalk. So you have to, if you need to go softly, you really need to go softly. And again, I'm just going to use my brush and just really softly See, I don't even need to do anything to smudge. I just need to dab a little bit onto the same thing, and a little bit here. And I'll grab a little bit of black on my brush and add it here. Okay. I'm almost not touching the paper. That's how gentle you have to be, because we really don't want the black lines. We only want to show the shadow and the light. Just there as well. Okay, I think we're definitely getting there. Just a few last things. After applying that white, some of these markings are gone. Maybe some on the side, a bit more, and there as well. And I'm also going to use this. You can use just your soft pastel, but this would just have a bit more control. Going for some darker lines. Now I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and please don't forget to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and check out my Patreon as well. I will also leave all the links to the other tutorials that I've been talking about during the video in the description box as well, so have a look over there if you're interested. Okay, so yeah, that's that. One more thing, just a really soft, just like I went feather light on that black on the line, we'll go feather light with the white. When you've got the dark and the light meeting together, you create that sort of a stronger 3D illusion. So that's why when you've got something light, it looks lighter when it gets really close to the shadow. It doesn't actually get lighter. This is how our eye receives it. Okay, now if you have been using this material with me, of course make sure you wash your hands, but sometimes it's still quite hard to get rid of complete, like you still might have some faint shadows on your fingers. So sometimes using things like baby wipes or makeup removal wipes, that helps as well. So that's how you can get the last bit of it out if you need your hands clean straight away. Otherwise, after a few more washes, it'll completely disappear. Okay, so I hope you had fun, and as I said before, remember to subscribe and press the notification bell as well, so that you're notified every time a new video comes out. And support me on Patreon if you can do that. That would be great. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial today, and as always, thank you so much for drawing with me, guys.